Hello and welcome back to Refocus, the podcast. My name is Bárbara,
And I'm Christina.
and here at Refocus, we explore the basic human need for spirituality. What does that even mean, man? Like, what does that mean? We're back. We are back. This is reality,
For
and
real this
and
time.
we
We
are
did say one time that we were back before. We're back for real this time. This is a long shot, long term. And should we get into it? Just jump right into it.
we. There's no time to lose. I think we should start off by telling all of our listeners that we have missed so much.
Oh, yeah, that's true.
um, what that even means, where we explore the basic human need for spirituality. Things have changed here at Refocus, and like in life, things change. It's part of life. And we are here to embrace all the new changes, to tell you all about it, to talk new knowledge, new wisdom, new understanding that we have come to understand. So redundant, but um, today. And I just want to say real quickly before we even get into it, little description of what we mean by exploring the basic humanity for spirituality, right? Because it's something so common that we grew up understanding of. We have a basic human need for water, for food, for shelter. And it's definitely never have come the idea or the conversation that there's a basic need, a real human need for spiritual connection, for spiritual well being. And that's what we want to bring to the table here at the new Refocus Renewed season 3.
Hey.
We have season 1 and season 2. If you are a new listener, there exist previous episodes that you can listen to um, from the past few years. And why did we leave? Why did we leave? I
Why did
know you are all
we
wondering, why did we leave?
on the edge of your seats? Um well, before we even get there, what were we doing before? What were we talking about before? We were mostly focused on intentionality. This was what, mid COVID. We're like, let's start a podcast.
2020. Refocus was born in 2020.
2020,
3-year-old baby.
exactly. And when we first started, it was like I said before, intentionality and making sure that, not making sure, but kind of bringing awareness to a lifestyle where you are quote unquote living your best life, quote unquote getting the most out of life, because we felt, I don't know if we're the authority, but we felt like people were not living their best lives. Or we speaking for ourselves as well, we thought that there was more that we could be getting out of life, and we didn't want to miss a single part of it. And when we first started, we talked about everything. We talked about physical well being. We talked about emotional well being and mental well being, and so many. I never remember.
Say all five. Say all five,
I
girls. Say all five. Spiritual
all these
and
veterans will know.
social. 5
So we were
areas of
kind of,
well being. We are core pillars of Refocus.
exactly. And we had fun. We had a great time, and it was nice to talk about these things. And we had a lot to say about these things. But at the end of the day, we always somehow made it back to spirituality. I think both of us, we've always had questions, which will come up. Stay tuned. It was just something that we're both passionate about. We just something that moves us, and something that really is one of the glue for our friendship. So we thought, why not? Why not lean into it? Why try to go broad when we can go niche, and we can have a podcast that kind of speaks to people that have all these questions but may not necessarily feel like they have a safe space to explore them. And that's what brings us here today. And that's why we're like, I almost swore. Are we allowed to swear? Are we allowed to say the F word?
Right.
We're like,
Huh?
F it.
Are we? Yes. It's here we explore what is life if it is not transparent.
Yeah,
We are here to be real, man.
exactly.
It was a
Exactly.
beautiful time
Yeah.
that we lived. We don't want to talk a lot about the past because the future is bright and the future is exciting and the present is even more exciting
True.
right now, right here in this episode. And I think you said it perfectly. We have always felt a deep connection, a deep questioning,
Mm.
desire to explore what spirituality even means, which will be something we'll be talking about not so much this episode, but the next. So stay tuned. And yeah, that big pause for growth. I just want to make a side notes how essential that is and how little we talk about it right today in our society, in our culture, because it's a constant demand to produce, a constant desire to see and to feel and to be creative, and we don't accept or welcome taking pauses for growth or going into this dark room of development.
Mm.
And well, like how do we know how long it took Steve Jobs to develop the iPhone before we even saw it in the Mac stores, man? Like Nap or the car, which took way more longer to develop and to think before we even took a ride on it. So nothing happens in life before someone takes the time to really consider and think for themselves and take time where you can learn the most is with yourself. And this is what this past few years have been before after we started Refocus. And for me personally, it was a very, very emotional roller coaster, well being and physical wise, going all under those surgeries, endometriosis. And if you are listening and have endometriosis or similar symptoms for endometriosis, you are not alone. And that was beautiful. That was pretty much all my 2022. It was not beautiful. Not beautiful at all. Um, and like you were saying, Chris, that we started off first talking about is those changes and our shifts in our personal goals and professional goals. And we really took a pause and said, all right, we kind of like what we're doing here with Focus, but how is it connecting with who we want to be in the long run? And I think what we've come up with for the next few seasons or forever, which we intend to be forever, is something that is we're excited about, and we're allowing God to lead, and we are exchanging ideas, and we want to exchange ideas with you. We want to listen to your ideas and feed off of them and have conversations about them. Your questions, the questions that we have, we know are questions that many people have. What we want to explore in the future and flow with the new version of ourselves, man.
Yep.
That's life, like a river. We're here to be rivers of water,
Amen.
fluid.
Okay. Okay. Um. Okay. So, what does that mean for us? Like, what do we mean when we say we're gonna focus on spirituality?
You want to go right in, don't you? You want
Listen.
to go
I mean,
right
is there anything
in.
else?
We're
We
focused
already
renewed.
here. Exactly. Straight to the point.
Right. Zoom lens on spirituality is what we have for our next focus in Refocus. And what that means, we want to talk a little bit about unfiltered search for meaning. Yep, that's our new tagline. Unfiltered search for meaning. Can we include it here on the screen for everyone to see? Unfiltered search for meaning. I
Oh,
just
and
threw it
that's a
out
good
for
point,
you.
Barbs. That's a good point. We are recording this. This will be on YouTube. So if you are listening, this is what we're going to be doing now. Every episode is going to be both a podcast episode and a YouTube episode. I know some people like to have a visual representation when they are listening to a conversation or when they want to be part of a conversation. I know some people like to listen on the go. So we're trying to get you wherever you are. So yeah, it's Refocus the podcast, the YouTube channel. So check us out.
Yeah, it is. Yes, it is. If you're listening on your way to work on Spotify, you're not seeing me do a little dab on YouTube. That's where you gotta go on YouTube so you can see us. That's right. Ah, we appreciate y'all. We appreciate y'all. Um, I'm looking here at our pillars of what we stand for and what is gonna be the basis of our conversations moving forward. And what do we really want to do and what do we mean? What is this just talk that we're talking about and mentioning? Is that race consciousness of that human basic need for spirituality that we mentioned? The need won't go away, right? Like a person needs to understand that we're all born with basic needs. And regardless of who you are, regardless of your spiritual background, regardless of your experience, that need manifests itself in different ways. But regardless if I regardless of my experience, that need needs to be satisfied in some way or another. So it's interesting, the conversation that we want to explore, because really the end goal is to understand that connection further. What does it mean to have a connection with a higher being? Because this is not just gonna be for Christian listeners, right? That's not our goal. And we would talk about our personal spiritual experiences later on. Just a deep sight.
Just big, big, big
Our
sigh.
deep,
I will say one thing though.
our spiritual
I will say
experiences.
one thing about the, and we keep saying this basic need for spirituality, and we're gonna kind of delve into spirituality in a sec, but that need for spirituality might present itself in different ways for different people based on your experience, whether you grew up being religious or not. I think that might be wanting to be part of something bigger. So that might express itself in working to something that is working to improve the world or your community, or it present itself as you want to get closer to God. But even the word God has so much baggage, so it doesn't have to be what it means for us. It doesn't have to mean the same for you. And that's another thing, like Barb's. Why am I calling you Barb's all of a sudden? Like Barbie said. That's another thing that we're going to explore soon too. Like, what does it mean? What does spirituality mean for different people? Because I think for a long time, being spiritual and connecting to a higher power, there was kind of like a monopoly in religion, and in Western religion specifically. So yeah, like we're gonna break that down. We're gonna see what that means. And to be honest, to be completely transparent, the word spirituality to me is it has a lot of definitions, and I don't know at this point in my life what the definition that I'm using. I guess that's what I'm trying to figure out. Like this, I guess this whole podcast is a little bit selfish because it's also me trying to figure out what the hell do I believe in. Let's do it on the podcast. Let's do it live. Um, but no, I hope that's helpful for somebody.
Because people need this. We need these conversations ourselves, right? So we're looking out for a need that isn't ourselves, and that desire to be in constant pursuit for meaning, right? Unfiltered search for meaning. There you go again. And I heard this said once, and it um, it's constantly something that I think about a lot, because it opened my mind to a totally new perspective about anything related to God. Is that the only distance that exists between you and God is your unawareness to Him. And when I first read that, I said, okay, hold on.
Wait a
Because
minute.
if you grew up, we grew up Pentecostal. So if you evangelical Pentecostal, you went to a church, you understand how prayers work, and you understand the idea that the more you pray to God and the more you pray or talk about God, the more power He's gonna give you. Or the more people say things like these, like this, right? Like, God, when they're preaching or when they're talking or when they're talking about God, God, bring your power down and come in this place and
Mm.
fill me with your power, fill me with your love. Like, or last night I went to this youth conference, man. I got so full of the Holy Spirit, like I'm still drugged, type of thing. Like Paul talks about, filled with the Holy Spirit. But this mere idea that we come to a realization, right? Because more than an idea, the Word of God says that the Spirit of God lives in us, and Jesus said it before He left, and God talks about it, that when He created Adam, He placed a spirit of Him in Adam and in the creation of the mankind. And we will talk about the garden later on in
I
another
have
episode,
many thoughts
because
on the
there are a
garden. I
lot
have
of
many,
things
many
to
thoughts on
talk
the garden.
about. But when He says this, it helps us understand that, hey, there's part of God in me. There's
Oh
something
my
of
god.
God in me. Oh, phone fell.
Keep going. See,
Ah,
this is what when we do it live. This is what happens.
it's part of life. Now I'm talking to a AC.
Keep going.
Anyhow, that the if the only distance that exists between me and God is my inability to connect and see Him in my life, then there is nothing that I can and cannot do to get Him to be bigger in my life. Like, God's power is not gonna be bigger the more you pray to Him. You're just gonna become more aware about the power. And why is this relevant? Is that it talks about what we're saying of raising the consciousness of what it means to connect and to want to connect and explore this connection with a higher being, whether you believe in Christian, Jehovah, and Allah, you're Buddhist, Hindu. And these are the conversations that we want to redefine, and we want to reintroduce spirituality. Um, because, like Chris was saying before, when we spoke about Refocus, about life's distractions, and very COVID, right? We were all very much distracted, and we very much still are. As a culture, we have nothing's changed, guys.
Yeah.
Nothing's changed. but but we want to emphasize for ourselves and for you all that listen, and be a reminder, really, um, that life is about that constant learning and being that student forever, and not always about teaching, because in reality we have nothing to teach. We have nothing to
I love
attribute.
that. Yeah.
We are no one.
That's another thing.
We know
Just
nothing.
just a side note,
All I
right?
know is I know nothing.
And the more I know, the more I realize I know nothing. I think for me, and I realized this a few years back, and I'm gonna preface by saying, guys, I might say a lot of blasphemous, quote unquote, things. I'm just trying to figure it out. Like, I'm tired of being cookie cutter. I'm tired of whatever. It doesn't matter. That's a side note.
Everyone
I
is tired.
like one of the like biggest pillars of Christianity specifically is to go out and spread the gospel and bring people to our side and save people and all that stuff. But recently I'm like, what am I bringing them to? Like, do I even know what I'm bringing them to? Can I express to them what I'm bringing them to? And honestly, I couldn't. And I know that's going to rub people the wrong way. So be it. I'm sorry. I'm trying to figure it out. But what did I bring that up? That was a side note to something that you said. I
That
forgot.
we know nothing.
Yeah, and I'm like, I'm okay with. I think a lot of people, when it comes to faith, specifically when it comes to religion, you have to be like, you have to die for your faith. Like, you have to be so sure. You have to doubt. There should be no doubt. You should know exactly what you believe, and you should be able to clarify it. And if you don't, then that means you're not Christian enough, or you're not, I don't know, Muslim enough, or you're not X enough because you can't describe what you believe in. And to an extent, I understand that, because what do you believe in if you can't describe it? I do understand that. But a lot of faith for me has been trying to figure out what it is. When I get to level 2, I'm like, I have questions that I even couldn't even think about at level 1, but I'm not where I need to be, because now I just have a different set of questions because I have a different understanding. So for me, it was always hard to, quote unquote, evangelize, because I had questions myself. And you're going to ask me a question, I don't know the answer to it, and I can only be honest. Um, all these things, like, we're touching on so many things that are going to come up, but I wanted to go back to God. Um, and you talked about where how God was described to us. There's a podcast that I listen to, Rob Bell. I always mention Rob Bell. And one of the episodes, he was saying that a lot of times, even in the Bible, it's described as like a 3-tier type of setup, where we live in the middle tier, and heaven is at the top, God in heaven is at the top, and obviously hell and the devil apparently is at the bottom. So when we pray, we say, we lift our prayers up, or God rain down on us. It's like a very up and down
Come
relationship.
down.
Thank you
All the songs talk
for the
about coming
demo.
down.
Coming down, like,
Coming
there's this.
down. Coming down.
Exactly, and it reinforces that God is not here.
Separate.
God is up there. There's a separation, exactly, but right between us and God, and that's what you're taught. You're growing up. The prayers go up, the blessings come down. There's so many references to this, and as I get older, I'm realizing, like, I've come to the way that I see God now. First of all, to me, God doesn't have a gender. So even when I say he, or like, that feels wrong. I don't even refer to God as a man anymore. So I don't know. I don't know how to even refer to God with pronouns. That's a whole episode on itself. But to me, God
They.
is they honestly, God is like the air that we walk through, the air that we breathe. God is here and now, and everything that creation is God. Everything that we experience is God. Because how it doesn't, and I don't know. I don't understand how God can be separate from His creation. Like, and I'm struggling. I'm struggling. I'm hopefully figure it out one day. But to me, at the end of the day, God is not up there. God is not outside. God is this. This is God. I know sometimes when I talk, and this is going to happen a lot on the podcast, fair warning, I'm going to sound very new age, very like, we're all God. I'm not trying to sound like that, but I guess that's just where I am in this spiritual journey.
I
Um,
I I
Go ahead.
I just want to say we have the you even saying that the fact that we have to say, hey guys, I promise I'm not like super new age. I just kind of like agree with this. The fact that I have to mark the line between if I'm Christian, then everybody else is wrong. Like the
Mm.
fact that we still have to do that is a problem because I want to bring I before I even get into that, or if I even get into that, it might not be something right now worth for an entire episode probably. But I just want to quickly mention two Bible scriptures that confirm what you just said. The two topics that you were talking about. Maybe I should pop a Bible here, but to be truthful, I kind of just know the verses and I have no idea what book they're on.
Wow.
And
At
I
least you
just
know
know
the
this
verses.
one is definitely Genesis. I know this one's definitely in Genesis.
Mm-hmm.
Because the Spirit of God roamed through the waters,
Mm-hmm.
right? And the Holy Spirit was there and was the word that brought into life everything that God created with his commands to create the world. And that's the way that the Bible clearly states it. So, how can God not be in everything that you said in the water, in the creation? How can he never have been if he was the one that made it up? Like in everything that you see in something that is manufactured, coming back to that Apple example, you see the idea of Steve Jobs in the Mac, even though the dude only was like the OG for the iPhone. Um, Close parentheses. Next Bible verse that you were talking about of, oh, I don't want to forget it. It was Paul talking. Oh, Chris, what did you mention? Come on, I cannot
Listen,
forget.
I don't have any Bible verses in
Um,
here. I only have
you
the
were
Lord's
talking
Prayer.
about no. You were
Was
talking
it New Age?
about no. Come on, give me 1 second. Give me 1 second.
Take your time.
Oh yes. Thank you, God. He gonna got me.
I'm
He got me.
sorry.
He got me backed up. The idea that I have to understand God and believe in my faith when I come to the understanding of Jesus is my savior and he died at the cross and then the work is finished. You said it specifically that you have to be in a constant state of like, I still don't know because like I understood everything that I was told, but right now I'm still trying to understand it because everything that I was told, I realize everything else is kind of different and not the way that they actually told me. But
Right.
that this whole idea that we're talking about is that this search that when we say that it's life is search is that faith is supposed to renew itself, and that's definitely something nobody told me. Like they never told me like, hey, in the same way you have to renew and refresh your relationship with Chris and kind of like not stay with the memories when you guys were 18 in college. You have to like make new ones and like have new conversations about new things. That's the same way you have to look at this whole faith deal and not just like relationship with God. Like you have to understand things in a different way than you did before. And that's why people say when you read the Bible, you can understand verses in different ways every time you read them because you're a different person every time you read it. You
Yeah.
pick up a
Well,
book and you're like, oh, right now I just went through something. So go for it, girl. You
oh,
look inspired.
no, I didn't. I was just agreeing with you because that's a great point. I like talking going back to the river mention that you talked about earlier. I like to look at people as rivers. I don't know, was it Plato or Socrates? I'm not gonna pretend to be smarter than I am. One of the philosophers was like, "You never step in the same river twice because a river is always flowing." It's also quoted in Pocahontas. Uh,
That's where we know it from.
Forget the
It
philosopher.
was
It was the song.
like a great Messiah Kanye West once said.
What are you saying? Um. Okay. Yeah. So you never step in the same river twice because the river is always flowing. It's always a different river, like continuously, right? And that's why I feel about people. You're never when we by the time that we this conversation that we've had, right? It's we've been talking for about 25 minutes. We are different now than we were when we first started this recording, right? So you might read a verse or you might come across a spiritual book and it might resonate with you in this way because you're going through a specific thing in your life, right? And then when you come back to it, as you've said, Barbie, so beautifully, you're gonna see it in such a different light. So I think growing up, you're kind of fed the idea that faith gets to this point where you figured it out. You're strong in your faith now. You've built a foundation. There's no shaking this foundation. You're here now, and I don't think that's how it works. And I think that goes back to what our new tagline is: the unfiltered search for meaning. Matter of fact, let's just break that down right now. Let's just break it down right now. We're gonna come back to the
Yeah,
search.
yeah, yeah.
Like we've been talking about the search aspect, but we said unfiltered. Notice that is related to, refocus camera. We got a little theme going. It's okay. We say unfiltered because a lot of times, especially when it comes to our faith, when we're trying to figure something out, we're already looking through it through a specific lens, right? The analogy that we use when we're kind of talking about this is when you go when you're looking for what do you like, maybe on Google, right? When you're searching for something on Google, you have filters on. It might be child safe filters. It might be you, especially if, for example, Google Images, if you're looking for a certain image, you want it to be this size, you want it to have a transparent background, you want it to have these colors. Like, you have all these filters going on, so that's obviously going to affect what results you get. And so with faith, right? If you grew up as Christian, if you're trying to find the answer to um how does God fit into my life, for example? What does God mean to me? When you're looking for that search, you're already looking through it through a Christian lens. And that's not to say you can't come to a satisfactory conclusion or result by looking through those lens. It's that you're you might be missing on so many other results, so many other directions, because you've already decided, I want to look at it through these lens. And again, that's not a bad thing. That's just what we do, right? That's just what we do. And so what we want to do at Refocus is kind of try, and it's going to be hard because we're going to be biased. We're biased towards Christianity because we grew up Christian. But what we're going to try to do is kind of be aware of that and be deliberate in seeking different avenues when it comes to our spirituality that's not necessarily tied to Christianity. That's the unfiltered part. And that's where you guys come into play, where wherever walks of life that you guys are in, we want to hear your experiences as well. Like, we want this to be a two-way conversation. Um, and that's the unfiltered part. We don't want to look at things through only a Christian point of view, not even through only a Western religion point of view. Like, what's going on in Eastern religions that go back way back? How can the teachings apply to
Way
our current lives?
longer than Christianity.
Way longer, right? So
Then
that's
the
the
Bible
unfiltered part.
was written.
Exactly. So it's like there are truths that the Bible like mention that other religions, other faiths have mentioned. So what is the relationship there? How can we maximize, right? How can we maximize these teachings, these truths, and apply them in a way that is welcoming and in a way that many people can benefit from? So that's the unfiltered part. That was really long-winded. I don't know if you wanted
How
to add anything,
how
Barb.
can we understand? No, it was great. How can we understand God and see God in each and every one of them, regardless of the religion that we grew up in? And I just want to say, Chris, that point out the fact how hard it is to take off your filter.
Oof.
Like, number one, I need to put my ego away. I need to put my pride away. I need to put down the fact that I, although I'm a diehard for the Christian Jesus, I have to understand that these people are diehards for
Yep.
their Muslim Allah.
Yep.
Like, we're talking about like that they feel the same, but I want to go in and I want to be like, but have you heard about Jehovah though? And I just want to say how it's not easy to come to bring everything that you have always known down because it brings all your defenses down. We're talking about survival. Like, we put up barriers of identity through the knowledge that we gain throughout life to like kind of like think of it like Plato, right? So you get one a little this from like this is what I was told in church. This is what I was told in my family. Now I'm folding my little identity, and this is me. You meet me, hi, I'm Barbara, and this is what I believe in. And this is what I have. So you're asking me to take a little part of my limb and my Play-Doh to hear what you have to listen to take off my filter. But that's what Paul was saying though. The Bible verse, that's what I was that I remembered exactly what it was. That's what he's saying though. He says if you if your work is not finished until the return of God, right? Until Jesus returns specifically. But if you think you got it all figured out with what you currently know, understanding your soul perspective, you're not understanding that God is everywhere else. Maybe that's an even a question. Is God everywhere else?
Yeah, that's a great. That's a great
That's
one. We'll
a,
come back
a
to
cool
that one
question.
too. I will say one more
Um,
thing. I will say
go
one
for
more
it.
thing, just quickly. I think a lot of people are afraid to consider the fact that they may be wrong. Right? That's
Yeah.
not a big revelation.
Yeah, because you're telling me to I will die.
You-
I will have an identity crisis.
yep.
It's survival here. Like
Right.
you're asking me to become to weaken, lose my leg, walk with one limb.
Yeah, exactly. And it's the reason that I say that specifically is because, as you said, it's so beautifully, Barbie. The way that, well, not me necessarily. I'm still figuring out my faith with Christianity, but the way that a diehard Christian feels about Christianity is the way that like a Hindu might feel about Hinduism, right? And there is a possibility. This is what people have to grapple with, and I know it's difficult, but there's a possibility that you might be wrong. Like the way that you see the world might not be the way that the world is. And once you have come to understand that, there's a humility that is born from that to make you more open to understanding, like, okay, I feel very strongly about Jesus. This person feels very strongly about the prophet, or this person feels very strongly about Buddha. Like, the way that I feel about Jesus is the way that they feel about their
Yeah.
spiritual leader. So, yeah, go ahead. I don't know.
I,
I
I
really
just wanted
didn't
to
know where
say
that
I
sentence
just
was
wanted to
going.
say before I just
Okay.
want to pause you real quick before you say because you said you might be wrong. Can we just put on emphasis that for you, since it's what you believe, it's not wrong. It's just yours. Like
Mhm.
people just gotta we just have to walk with this consciousness and awareness that what I believe is mine. And is my reality and is my faith. And yeah, you want to commute and not commute, you want to commune with people that think like you. Um but that's it. Like the world doesn't think like you. Everyone else doesn't think like you. Like you just have to understand that you make your reality with what you choose to believe, and your faith is your reality because you chose it like that, or others chose it for you over real. Because you probably were told about your specific faith from your family or passed down, or more specifically, if you were in the Western world, you know Jehovah and not Allah specifically. But if you had grown up in India, you would probably be in a monastery right now and not in Pentecostal church or evangelical church. So just what you're saying, just the mere importance of being aware um, that faith and religion is at the end of the day geographical. Where you grow
Sure.
up
Yeah,
is what
very
you
dependent on
believe.
that. Right. Okay, I don't want to take us too far. So that was unfiltered in a nutshell. That was the
Meaning, we're
unfiltered
on
part.
to lastly, yeah, we're almost done. Meaning, yeah, on filter search for meaning. What do we mean by meaning? It's what is meaning? It requires effort. That's all we have to say. That an unfiltered search for meaning demands action.
Mm,
Nobody can search, nobody can just be like listen to meaning. I can't pull up a podcast and be like, oh, I'm gonna get meaning, right? I have to work for the meaning. I have to think. I have to like meditate and reflect and put my input into what is meaning. And that's what we as a community want to build is that effort that you're not doing it alone. Why should you listen to Refocus? To explore your faith with us, to explore those conversations and experiences without pressure or judgment. Whether you love God, whether you don't love God, or whether you don't love nothing or anything. Um, we would invite you, like Chris said, to engage, to rate, to comment, to reach out, and we want to together discover spiritual, meaningful, um, and personal growth practices with others in this community aspect, and want to motivate and be supported as together we build a foundation um, here at Refocus for an abundant, limitless, and purpose driven life. Yeah, I totally read that because that's our core pillar. You can find that on our website, which is www.refocuspodcast.com, which is where you can reach out to us. I do jingles, guys. I do jingles for a living.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anything else we should talk about before we close up?
Yeah, just quickly with the meaning part, one thing we can also talk about is before even considering or thinking about what the meaning is that you're looking for, guess we have to step back a little bit and think about why do we need to find that meaning? Like why do we need to find that meaning? And once we understand that, and that's going to be a different answer for everybody, right? Once we understand that, then that's going to dictate how you go about finding that meaning. Um, and with that, we have so many things to talk about, like so many things. The church, religion in general, spirituality, that we haven't even defined spirituality. What does spirituality even mean? Not only for us, but like actually in the definition, right? Exactly. We're going to talk about obviously different religions. We're hoping to bring different guest speakers on. So if you're interested, honestly, reach out. Like, you never know. You might be our first guest speaker. We're looking for people, different walks of life. We're going to talk about gender in the church, gender and religion. We're going to talk about dreams, sleep, books. Like, there's just so many things to dive into and to dissect. So stay tuned, honestly. Stay tuned and reach out.
And that's our awakening. That's what we want to do. We want to awaken. We want to not live asleep. We talked about that in the first 2 episodes, remember?
Yeah.
We want we
Full
something
circle.
like that. We had a tagline of like, we want to not live asleep, because I think I just want to say, if you are a Christian and you are listening, we don't want to attack Christianity.
Nope.
That is very much what I believe in and I understand and I speak and my soul and spirit connects with. But it is an invitation to break down those filters that are preventing us from understanding God further beyond our filter. And with that, we'll close out. Um, what is our intro? We haven't figured that out yet.
Our
Have we?
outro.
That's Chris's job. She's up. Yes.
Okay, so I mean, we're kind of touched upon it a little bit. So as we said, and I'll say one last thing. I do agree with Barbie. Like, we're not attacking Christianity. We're not saying one religion is better than another. We're saying we have affinities towards, we, as in you, the listener, and us, have affinities towards religion or towards non-religious lifestyles because of geography, because of family and stuff. But what you as a listener need to kind of focus on is how you feel when we mention certain things. Like, why does your identity relate to certain things? Because there's a lot of things that we're going to talk about. We know it's going to be offensive. We know that it's going to strike a chord because it struck a chord with us, right? And so in these conversations, and from this conversation that we've had today, we want to hear about that. We want to hear about how we want to hear about how these episodes make you feel. And so that and with that, please reach out. You can find us on Instagram. You can find us on our website. It's all Refocus the Podcast. We're going to be on TikTok. You can email us. My email is christina.m.armand@gmail.com. I don't know why I said my email. The Refocus email is refocusthepodcast@gmail.com. Like, whatever way.
But that is her personal email.
Yeah, okay, don't spam me though. Whatever way is the most easiest for you to share your comments. Like, we really want this to be a conversation with you all. Um, like I said, we always want to build a community. Whatever way that is best for you to reach out. If you're watching on YouTube, please leave a comment, like the episode. I guess we're YouTubers now. Subscribe. I forgot. Subscribe.
Yeah, and if you're still listening, thank you, because we just spent the last 5 minutes
Yeah, I promise
asking for your feedback, because this is about you.
Yeah.
Thank you for listening. Till next time.
Bye.